My name's Tom Rooney, everybody, and I'm coming to you live from my classroom here at West Leyden High School. So I think the first thing I want to point out, if you can see it on your screen, is right about there. Of course, we're coming on December 7th this year, and it's only going to be a date which will live in infamy. Uh-oh. Can you guys hear me? I hope. Did somehow or another something? Okay, good. Thought something happened to the sound anyway. But anyway, that is actually a pretty decent FDR imitation if you've ever watched the actual black and white. Social studies teachers, of course, should be the first ones to recognize that it ain't going to be a date that will live unless we keep remembering it. So, of course, on December 7th, we always take note of Pearl Harbor and those who lost their lives that day and the entry and all the rest. So what you see behind me also is just the FTE logo and the title of today's seminar. It's actually a mini version of something we offer all week long, very often in Williamsburg, Virginia, which is a great historical setting for what you're about to see. And we've got 10 different games. We've got 14 different professor lectures over the course of the week. Today, we're just throwing you 3 of each to kind of give you a sample of what we do and show you the kinds of things that you can bring into your own classroom through FTE. I have been teaching here at West Leyden High School for 29 years. I'm a freshman this year. I'll be retiring after 3.5 more. And I've been involved with FTE since 1999. Because in 1999, when I started teaching economics, about halfway through the first semester, I went, oh my God, I need help. My class is boring everybody, including me, and I don't know what to do about it. And around about March, this flyer just showed up in my mailbox through the mail. And it was for this organization called the Foundation for Teaching Economics. They were offering a course called Economics for Leaders in Madison, Wisconsin. And Madison, Wisconsin is not too far from where I am. West Leyden High School is so close to O'Hare Airport that O'Hare Airport in Chicago had to pay to have us soundproofed. And so I went, hey, Madison's not that far to go. I spent a week in Madison, Wisconsin at Economics for Leaders, and it literally changed the way I teach economics. What FTE can do to put life into your classroom is huge. And so this program called Economics for Leaders is our senior program. It still is out there and you can still come. I even see an agreed there. There we go. Love it. After a little while, around about 1999, we started hearing from people who said, okay, my state just put these economic standards into the statewide curriculum, and I'm a history teacher. I don't really know economics. I don't know how to take economic lessons and drop them into my classroom. So that's what economic forces in American history was created for. It wasn't actually created for econ teachers, although any econ teachers can take these games and stick them in their classroom. It's really for history teachers who go, I need to drop or I want to drop a little bit of econ into my history class at the times when it comes relevant. So that's what our first game is going to be. Now, one thing I've discovered throughout this week that I am thrilled to say is that I suck again at online education. Those of us who've been teaching long enough, I'm sure there are some pups in the room who came in after COVID. But when we had to make the whole shift over to COVID, I did get pretty proficient when I was doing it every day. And I love being able to say I'm not good at it anymore because I haven't had to be because things are back to normal at school. So Debbie's going to be helping me out. There we go. Yes, Tracy, you're right. It does come with practice and it has to keep being practiced. And it's like a language. I haven't spoken it so long. I might need a little extra coaching and help. So what I'm going to try to do first out of the box is share my screen and bring up our first game, which I believe should be working right now. So hopefully you've got a disembodied voice that's still talking, but you can see the first line of the first slide in the Google Slides that go with our activity. So there we go. This version is called the question of trust. If you are somebody who did economics for leaders, we do also have a game called Cartels and Competition that you may have participated in. We don't double up on this game now in our conferences because, well, we want it to be a new experience for everybody. But if you are somebody who's coming back to FTE after a few years and you have already played the game Cartels and Competition, this game, Question of Trust, is pretty much the same thing. So when we break you out into the breakout rooms to be the different teams, keep it to yourself, right? No spoilers, no giveaways, just play the game like you're somebody else who's like joining for the first time. So this game, Question of Trust, goes back to the 1880s. This is why we have the Standard Oil political cartoon from Puck magazine. And in this game, there's supposed to be 6 companies. It does have to be exactly 6. And you need to know that as the teacher. If you have a smaller class, you can't cut the number of teams. If you have a bigger class, you can't raise the number of teams. It needs to be exactly 6. And the 6 different oil companies are going to produce 98% of the business in the industry. It's essentially saying there's no monopoly here in the game, but you 6 put together have all the market power that is relevant to the game. So we're going to be breaking you out actually into 12 different breakout rooms in just a minute. You'll be assigned to a room that's called A1, A2, A3, all the way up through A6. Or maybe B1, B2, B3, all the way through B6. Because like I was just saying to you, it has to be exactly 6 teams. There's no way to make it more, no way to make it less. There technically is, but it's tricky. And if we have time at the end, I'll show you how to do it. But I don't ever advise doing it because it is tricky. So we're actually going to run 2 simultaneous games. Where simultaneously 2 different sets of 6 oil companies will be making independent decisions. So as you can see from the screen that's up there right now, we're going to break you into those rooms. We're only going to give you 4 minutes. Got to be kind of quick. We want a team name. Now, I hope everybody's listening really closely right now because I played this game 2 days ago with my econ class. And I gave them a challenge with the team names. I told them that if their team names are more creative than your team names that you're coming up with today, I'll bring them donuts on Monday morning. But if you teachers are more creative than my students were, then, well, I don't have to buy anything. And I get to show them, hey, teachers were better than you. So will you please get me off the hook? Will you please save me some money and come up with some good oil company team names? The other thing you got to do is just pick a captain. The captain will submit the production decisions for the team. Don't worry, we'll explain that when you go to make those production decisions. We just need who's going to be the person who will do that. And then we'd also like to be a person who will be the accountant. There is actually a score sheet, a game sheet for this game. In an online setting, it's not really worth trying to drop it anywhere. I promise you, this is back of the envelope math. It'll be real easy. It's just going to be one person who's going to maybe crack open a blank document on their laptop, maybe pull out an old-fashioned piece of paper and pen, and just keep track of the finances for the team. You're basically going to be producing barrels of oil that are going to have a production price and a selling price, and you need to figure out profit. That's all it takes. So before we say we're going to bust you out into these exactly 12 rooms, does anybody have any questions? Is anything unclear about what you're doing with this first task? 3, 2, 1. I don't see any chats popped up. I didn't see any hands raised. So Debbie, why don't we flush them out to the breakout rooms? You got 4 minutes for a team name, a captain, and an accountant. Let's go. In the game that you play with your students, they actually fill out little cards like this that have their team name and that have the number of barrels of oil that they produced. But obviously in an online environment like this one, that doesn't really work. So if we go back to sharing the screen and we go back to the slides and kick it back into slideshow mode, what I'd like you to do right now, if you're one of the team captains, you were in a room that was maybe called A1, A2, A3, whatever else. All I need you to do is send a direct message to me, please. Would you just shoot a direct message to me in the chat that says this room number, and then tell me the name that you chose for your oil company. I'll record them here, and then we can put them in the spreadsheet that I'll be using to show you. There we go. They're starting to come. Good stuff. So I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see what these are, and I'm going to click escape. Good, good, good. All right. So, okay, got it. Don't worry. If you can't remember your room number, maybe I should have given you the heads up about that. I got a way to fix that for us. No big deal. So here we go. This will just take us a second. A3, I like it. All right, we've got, okay. Oh my goodness, you guys have saved me donuts. I'm telling you right now, and that's not just perverse incentives going on. I'll show you what my students came up with when we start to type this. That's the reason why I'm not doing it right now. And you guys have saved me having to buy donuts for sure. So all right, I'm making my way through. Almost. These are good. These are good. Let's see. And I think we are ready to go. Yeah, I usually do buy them donuts anyway. I do, but it'll be the little holes going. Sorry, you didn't get the big prize. You only get the little prize. So going back to sharing the screen and cutting into the spreadsheet that I use with my students. These were the names that they came up with just this last particular Thursday. So I don't know, look at number 3. It's row number 4, but it's the third team, Shabam Oil. I actually have a student in that class whose name is Shabomi. And so, you know, you don't get the joke if it's not Shabam Oil. And of course they said, and our slogan is, our oil is Shabam. Every year I get a little bit more creative stuff than this usually. Sometimes kids are pushing the envelope. The Sean D. Combs oil that you can see, they felt like they were pushing the old envelope. They thought I might disqualify them and say they don't want that name. I had a group that called themselves Rooney's Rizzers one time, if you're up with the kids' lingo. I had a group that called themselves Ceaseless Discharge. Thank you very much, guys. And they do get fairly creative. In my own opinion, the best name that was ever submitted is Only Leiden Specific. we have a grocery store that's a small grocery store that they love to make fun of, and it's called Tony's Finer Foods. The year that a company named themselves Tony's Finer Oil, I got a big crack out of that one and thought it was pretty funny. So if we type over for the A group, A1 is oleoflow. I know that A3 is Shellexia oil. Got to be able to type. Onyx Energy in A5. And number sign no Cali, I believe I'm getting right, oil. And we'll return to the A's because I do have Dino Juice that goes somewhere. I do have Pearl that goes somewhere. I got a couple other names that you guys will help me with. Now, in the B group, in B2, we have City Slickers. Still one of my top 3 favorite movies ever. I have Dynamic Duo Oil. I have Standard Oil. And then we still have to fill in, it looks like, about 4 slots. So, Dino Juice Petroleum, if you don't mind, I'm just going to put you here because it doesn't really matter where you are in the slot. It's okay. Dino Juice Petroleum going there. I'm going to put Pearl Petroleum here in the slot for B4. If that wasn't your slot, don't worry. You can go anywhere. And then can anybody else, maybe by unmuting and calling it out, or maybe by typing it in the chat, if we're missing your team name, Captain, sorry about that. It's just hard to manage the chats and such. What can you help?
B5, we're the oil makers.
Oh, that's right. Oil makers is one of the ones that I know has to be popped in somewhere. B5.
Yes, sir.
Got it. All right. Who else can help me on the A side? There should be 2 more team names out there that don't see yourselves yet. If we have all these team names, is there any captain who doesn't see their name somewhere in the list?
I think we were in one of the B groups, but we were the Energy Empresses.
Okay, got it. So it doesn't matter where you are. We're going to make you now in the A group, Energy Empresses. Love it. And then there should only be 1 more team name left. Any captain who doesn't see a team name? 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then I'm going to play the game. Another one of my favorites from my students was Los Petroleros. My school happens to be about 82% Latino. And so that was a name that came in one time that stuck with me. And I can play that one if we got to. So from here, we're going to go back to, in theory, the slides for the game. And let's start playing. One thing that everybody's going to need to know about for the game is that there's no trick, there's no trap. The market in oil will clear. You may safely assume that you can sell every barrel of oil that you're going to make. We're not going to pull the rug out from under you in that way at all. Now, what you see on the screen is a forecast. And I always emphasize that word with my students. I tell them, as much as we pick on the weather forecasters, they're usually pretty much in the ballpark. And when we play this game, kids, I tell them, the numbers are going to be a little off. These are not the exact numbers. This is just a forecast. And as I'm sure most of you know, kids start to smell a trap unless you show them your honesty. And so I tell them, every round I will show you and I will give you a chance to call me a liar. I'm telling you, word of honor, the numbers will always be close. And I do prove it to them every round. So like you see in that second bullet point, you might want to grab a screenshot of this because the information is important when you and your team decide how much oil to produce. So there's 6 oil companies. The amount of oil produced every round, in other words, where we fall in this column of the chart, is totally up to the decisions of you 6 oil companies and what you decide to produce. It's all endogenous to this model, to speak a little bit of highfalutin economics. So you walk the kids through a couple little practicey things, like if everybody produces only 1 unit of oil, well, then that's just gonna mean that the oil supply is 6 units. And at the level of 0 to 6, that's going to be $125 each. Now, I didn't turn on the pair deck thing for this one. It's not really worth the time. We want as many rounds as we can. I will turn pair deck on for the next game. It's not like I don't know how to use it or nothing. But don't try dragging your dot. It's not going to work. This isn't the pair deck part of the show. So let's say these are going to sell for $125 a barrel. They will always cost $30. Accountants for their teams, did you just hear that instruction? They will always cost $30. That doesn't change throughout the course of the game. So in that case, every team would make a $95 profit. It's just total revenue minus total cost, and there you go. The worksheet for the kids does spell it out for them that way. You then walk the kids through something a little bit more complicated. Let's say your company makes 4, but not everybody's making the same. It turns out to be 18. Well, then 18 would fall right here on the chart. They're only going to sell for $75 each. You're only going to be profiting $45 per barrel, not $95 per barrel. And you really do sometimes have to walk the kids through this. But I'm sure those of us here this morning, this is pretty easy back of the envelope math, accountants. I don't think I lied to you, did I? This should be fairly simple. So we're going to have the breakout rooms go back to the teams because, of course, there cannot be any coordination. There cannot be any illegal price fixing or anything else like that. You've got to make your decision in isolation. Now, at the end of the first breakout room, we kicked you out at a certain time, and we still will. But for all the rounds from here on out, as soon as you know what your decision is, you can just come back to the main room. If you're the captain, please make good note of this bold-face instruction. When you send me your team name and how many barrels of oil you want to make, do it with a private chat directly to me like we asked. If you just chat the whole room, everybody in the room is going to know what your decision was. So make sure you're keeping track of that. Every team in the game starts with $150. When we went back to the spreadsheet, I have a way to keep track of all the money that everybody has. So take a look at that. Everybody in the room has $150 to start the game. So your decision for your team, everybody across the whole game, you're either going to make 1 barrel of oil, 2 barrels of oil, 3 barrels of oil, 4 like petroleros here in the example, or 5. Nobody has enough money to make any more than 5 in this round. So before we open up those breakout rooms, is there any questions? Is anything unclear? 3, 2, 1. Go out to your breakout rooms and come back when you know how many barrels of oil you want to make. Go. So let's go to sharing the screen. Let's put the spreadsheet back up. Good. Got it. And I think we're good. So, Oleo Flow said they're making 2 barrels of oil. Los Petroleros are making 4 barrels of oil. Shalexia at 2, Energy Empresses at 3, Onyx Energy at 4, and Nocali at 2. Now, that's going to give the A group 17 total barrels of oil. So A group, you're at 17 for this round. Now, if we switch over to the B group, Dino Juice came in at 2. City Slickers came in at 5. Dynamic Duo Oil at 4. Pearl at 4. Oil Makers at 3. And then Standard, I had one message that said Standard equals 3. I had another message that said Standard equals 5. So I'm just going to go with 4, and we're going to plug that in like that. So for the B group, if your team is on this screen, your total was 22. So again, if you're in this part of the game, the magic number is 17. If you're in this part of the game, the magic number is 22. So if we go back to the slides, remember that what we were showing you before was just a forecast. That's all it was. So don't get too excited yet. Am I sharing? Am I sharing? Let's try this again. Enter screen, share, and go to the slides. Now we're sharing. Good. So here was the forecast that you were given. Here are the actual numbers for round 1. So take a quick look at the screen that I have up here for you. Now take a look at what we were showing. This is what I do with my kids. I go, kids, did I lie to you? The numbers are very close. Nobody's game playing with you here. So in the actual numbers, 17 falls here at $75 per barrel. So accountants, you can figure out now how much money your team has to play with, because you know they cost you $30 and you made 75 per barrel. However, if you were in the B group, well, you produced 22. And so what that means is you kind of cut into your, I don't know, price level, I guess we would say. And so you're only making $50 per barrel. And so your profit is only going to be 20 bucks each. So accountants, what we want you to do is to just make sure you know how much money your team has right now. As the teacher in my class, I have this spreadsheet feeding to a tab that I call Backstage. And so at a $75 price, I already know how much money these teams have, thanks to the spreadsheet doing the math for me. So if you're in Group A, this should be the amount of money you have based on how much oil you produced. And if there's any mistake there, you can help me out and tell me. Now, when we get over here to B, you'll notice I already had 75 set because that's what my kids did in the first round. They were like the A. As soon as I change it to 50, it redoes the math for me because I have the prices set here. And so this makes my life really easy. You guys have this much money if you're one of the teams that's listed here. So you gotta point out to the kids, this is why how much money you have matters. The oil costs $30 a barrel. That means City Slickers, if they want to, could make 9 barrels of oil. They can afford 270 bucks. But Dino Juice can only afford to make 6 barrels of oil because 180 is all they can afford. Same with the bigger group where there's more money. Onyx Energy, you can crank up to 11 barrels if you want to. But Oleo Flow and No Cali Oil and Shilexia Oil, you can only do 8 because they cost $30 each. Is the math here that you see correct? And does anybody have any questions? 3, 2, 1. Then let's do round 2. You know how much money you have. Let's go out to the breakout rooms. Decide how much oil you want to make this round, and then come back. Let's go. All right, we're getting some decisions in for round 2. Those of you coming back to the main room.
I have a question while we're waiting, and
Sure, of
probably
course.
did this wrong. On the spreadsheet, is that like say we bought 3 first? Was our money the total from what we had left and what we made?
That is correct, right? So let's say you started with 150 and you made 3. That dropped you back down to $60, right? And then when you sold those 3 at whatever price, that's the price per barrel times 3 plus the $60 that you still had in the bank. Correct.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Thomas?
Yes.
At some point, can you, maybe soon, if possible, can you walk us through the calculation of how you came up with those prices?
Sure.
For those, how you came up with how much each of us had made in that first or in the second round? Because
Sure.
I know that my students are not very good at they're not very good at math. I consider myself to be pretty good at math, um, I think this is a pretty basic calculation, but because I haven't seen it or you went through it very quickly at the beginning, I'm not entirely sure how you came up with the with how much we each had made in that first round.
Correct. I got you. So we'll make that a part of the score that we pop in here. I think we'll go ahead and do that. I think there's a couple people I'll have to ask about their decision, but we should be able to go. So let me go back to sharing. Let me do the whole screen. And let's go with something like the A group. All right. Now, Oleo Flow, they made 2 barrels of oil, right? And to get to Eric's question, don't worry. Remember I mentioned the kids have a sheet that walks them through how to figure out your profit per barrel and all the rest. So the sheet that you'll be giving the kids will help them a lot with this math. But this game is way slower online than it is in your own room. And so that's why we asked you guys to just have an accountant who can do the stuff on pen and paper. So let's say Oleo Flow makes 2 barrels of oil. There's a couple different ways to figure it out. Number one, if they started at $150 and then 2 barrels of oil cost them $60, that drops them down to $90. When they sell those 2 barrels for $75 each, that's $150 of revenue. They still had 90 in their account. And so therefore that should total $240. Yes? Now, the other way that you can figure it out, you can just say we have $150. We sold 2 barrels and each one had a profit of $45. So if we figure our original 150 plus 45 for the first barrel plus 45 for the second barrel, again, the math works the same and it still gets us to 240. And so this spreadsheet does all that math for me instantly so that as the kids work through the score sheet, I can go around the room knowing what number each team should have. And I'm telling you, that's a godsend. So as far as the amount of money goes, any questions still left out there about how that works? All right, then let's see where round 2 got us. In round 2, I have oleo flow at 4. I have what I believe is one of my Standard Oils. I thought that when Standard Oil came in twice, it was 2 people for the same team, but it's actually 2 different teams. I believe that solved that mystery. And one of them came in at 4. Shalexia came in at 3. Energy Empresses might have sniffed something coming and only made 2. Onyx Energy went all the way up to 7. And No Cali Oil, can you help me? How many did you guys make?
We did 2.
2. All right. Then with 2 there, we're going to have 22 barrels of oil in the A group. The total is 22. Now, if we go over to the B group, Dino Juice made 3. City Slickers, can you help me? How many come from City Slickers?
We said 7.
Gotcha. City Slickers at 7. We had Dynamic Duo at 3. We had Pearl at 3. We had Oil Makers at 5, and the other Standard Oil at 7, making 28 barrels of oil for the B group. So if your name is on this slide, there were 28. If your name is on this slide, there were 22. Now, when we go back to the slides, come on slides, let's go. For the presentation slideshow, in round 2, these are the actual numbers. And so once again, before you get your magic, take a look. We didn't lie to you. Look at the forecast and look at the numbers. These are not the same numbers that they were for round 1. They're a different set, but they are still close. Nobody's lying in this game when we talk about the forecast. So in the A group, 22 is at $50 a barrel. You're still profitable in this round, but you're not as profitable as you were before. If you're in the B group, you were at 28. That drops you down here to this row where it's $30. And what that means is you made no money at all that round. And I make a big joke with the kids in my classroom when they hit that point, because they always hit that point. I say, all right, everybody, so now all that math, go ahead and do that math, figure out how much money you have. And then I just walk around the room with like a look on my face. And I'll walk up to a group of kids that is busily working through the math. And I'll go, y'all are really doing the math, huh? Yep, y'all are really doing the math, huh? Because there's no math they need to do. We go, you made no profit at all whatsoever. So we can just start the next round because everybody in this room has the same amount of money they had before. They will always get to that point. And sometimes they will overshoot it. And they will actually end up one row lower on the chart where they're losing $5 per barrel. And so it's at that point, you don't have a set number of rounds for this game. You're just playing as many rounds as it takes them to get to where they make no money at all, or where they make like they're losing $5 per barrel. Because in the version of this game that we're playing right now, they have a chance to collude with each other, which we just have to skip over right now. What's fun about that chance to collude with each other is that they always stab each other in the back. They always make an agreement to make 2 barrels of oil because that is the profit maximization point. And then when they come back in and actually have to turn in their decisions, only 1 or 2 teams is actually making 2. Everybody else is cranking it up. So in this game, you just keep running the rounds until they've had a chance to collude and they've stabbed each other in the back. And then this is the big finish of the game. Everybody gets this on a sheet of paper. It's a telegram. And because we're eating into your break time, I'm just going to leave this on the screen. You don't have to read through it word for word, but you can if you want. This is the role playing of Standard Oil right here in the telegram. It gives them the opportunity to join a group of honorable persons of knowledge and integrity whom you trust. Ba-dum-bum. The Oil Trust. And if they decide to join the Oil Trust, they don't give you one of the cards that I was showing you earlier about the little blue things that my kids actually fill out. They give you a certificate of trust in exchange. And so you get to decide how many barrels of oil each of them make. That's what these instructions say. They say, in return, we will end the destructive practices that threaten all of our livelihoods. We will drive more efficient production at scale and guarantee to all of you an equal share of the profits. So in other words, the kids who are in the lead are likely to go, cool, I'm joining the trust, because, well, that locks in their lead if everybody shares equally from there. The kids who are behind will often go, I'm not joining that trust because I need to get ahead in order to be able to win. So what you do in that last round is collect either the I'm joining the trust card, or you collect the production decision. And then you do a little tiny bit of quick math, because the key to the telegram, it says right here, if you're looking at the shared screen, we will drive more efficient production at scale. And what the kids haven't been told is, because the trust is more efficient production at scale, it only costs them $25 per barrel of oil, or you can say it costs them $20 per barrel. And so if you're not part of that, you don't get that break in the production cost. Then you just decide the number of barrels produced so that everybody who isn't in the trust is losing money per barrel, but the trust is keeping the money steady because, well, they have cheaper production costs. And the simulation here is the undercutting of the big oil trust being able to sell cheaper just to drive everybody else out of competition. And therefore, you have to then at that point, because your class is running out, just say to them, if we were to play more rounds, how many of you would join the trust? And if they're thinking logically, if they're not just mad, they're going to say, yeah, at that point, I guess I would have to, because I would lose my company otherwise. So we are a teeny little bit over time. Like I was telling you, this game is slower online than it will be in your classroom. The rounds do happen much faster.